I don't know how many, I say play and pretend. You get a fire alarm, full gear up, full
Nice.
response, going upstairs just to see
Dress
somebody.
rehearsal is what I call it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's better than what I say.
That's fair.
So you go upstairs, figure out somebody burned some shrimp on the thing, fire alarm went off, whatever. Every single time you do that, you're putting your boots on. What happens to your pants? They're all like taut. So they just shoved up, They don't ever fit in your boot unless you actually fit them in your boot. Dude, Lulus that I wear, and I assume these viewers are the same thing. They're so like not tight around your calf, but like just fitted.
Yeah. They
Just
don't come
slide
up.
right in your boot.
Really?
Slide in, slide out.
That's ideal. Because I'll be honest, here's what I do. I have Under Armour, like I don't know what pant they are, but they're the slimmer tactical pant. Like I'm not a big fan of big baggy clothes at all. So when
Big thighs save lives, dude.
Yeah, man. Kick my shoes off. I wear tall socks, grab my socks and pull them over my pants.
Mhm.
So now my pants are stuck in my socks and I don't have any problems.
So I made the transition from tall socks to short socks.
Oh, I can't. Not in boots. They come off.
Oh, you gotta get better socks.
Shorter
don't buy,
socks or
dude. These are ankle socks, man.
I have ankle socks on.
Yeah, these don't come off. They're real tight.
These are
So
also mambas or moombas.
bombas,
Bombas.
bombas. All right, let me sell these to you.
Okay.
How many socks do you lose?
None.
Full. You don't
That's
lose any socks. Yeah, I get these. They have an L and an R. You know which one they're going on?
fair
Which
enough.
foot? Yep.
Fair enough.
So
I
you
don't have
know-
a problem putting them on.
Me neither. But if the set's messed up,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because they're
Right.
all
This is
different. They're
not your
different
brother.
colors. So
Where'd your
you get
sister
two
go?
L's and
Yeah.
you have like one right. You're like, all right, it's almost
So
fucked up.
does
I
the left
lost
foot
one.
feel funny on the right foot?
It does.
So it's made specifically for the foot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Also helps keep your toes spread, not combined.
Okay. So it's got a bigger toe box.
So it's not real tight around your toes. It's real tight around your arch. It's your
Perfect.
performance.
Awesome.
So it's got like this little hex technology that hangs around your arch.
Perfect.
And then right around the collar of your ankle,
Mhm.
it's real tight.
Okay.
So putting your foot in a boot and out, no problem. It's not going to roll. And like my running shoes, they are real tight on the back of my ankle. And when I have bad socks, I'll run and they'll
come
start
down.
pulling under my
Ugh.
heel.
Hate that.
Terrible. Nobody wants to deal with that. That's why
Nobody.
people run with big, tall socks, right?
Right.
And for the longest time, that's why I used big, tall socks for the fire industry, because you don't want your sock rolling down on your boot while you're in a fire. And now you just got a lump under your heel.
Yeah. Who needs that? So
These
what's your
things-
solution?
Bombas. The best, dude, because you want to go.
Sell it to them
How often do you go and sleep with your socks on at work?
every freaking night. Thank you.
How much does it suck?
Oh, I bet I would sleep better if I didn't have socks on.
Yeah. So I lay my pants out, my shirt out, and I take my socks left, right. Shorter socks take 2 seconds to put on.
Agreed.
Long socks take ages, and they might not be straight.
Right. Then
So-
that'll screw me up too.
Dude, they're terrible. Yeah. And
Wow.
so it makes me feel better. Your feet breathe. You probably sleep better. Like I feel more at home when my socks are off. Oddly enough, I don't know why,
Probably
but
sleep better for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah. I'm going full birthday suit when I'm at home, so I'm
Fair
gonna try to
enough.
be as close to that without being crazy around the guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So watch out, feet out,
Boombas.
Boombas.
Boombas, guys. You heard it here first. Ben's sales pitch. We'll send it over to Boomba. See if they appreciate it.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll send us a couple pairs to try on. I'm going to get some. You've got some.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I'm
Hey.
saying left, right.
Yeah.
You lose one, dog chews it up. Your washing machine takes it, whatever. No
Yeah.
questions asked. You send me your receipt, a picture of your one sock, and they send you a brand new pair. Lifetime the sock.
I can't tell you guys what to do.
Last socks you ever need.
Just telling you what we do. It sounds like you need some Boombas. Let's go. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris.
I'm Ben.
Together, we are Priority Traffic Podcast.
Today we're going over stress and how we can cope with the physical, mental, and emotional issues that come along with prolonged and acute stress.
You nailed it.
Dude,
Dude,
not bad.
did you really, really redeemed yourself there?
I'll tell you what, I was stressing out.
Were you?
Yeah,
Why?
no, I
No.
wasn't.
You
I was ready.
pressure.
I thought about this one before.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Nice.
Pressure, stress. What are we talking about, man?
So, yeah, I mean, what are we talking about today? Holy cow. Let's do a real quick check-in. I've had a pretty stressful week. You've had a pretty stressful week. How you hanging in?
I'm better now. A couple weeks of things that are completely out of my control, things
Sure.
you can't deal with. Life throws wild things at you at different times. I'm a firm believer that God puts you in different positions to test you and make you stronger, right?
Yeah.
So I had a couple issues. My dog, who right now is, well, forever will be my best friend. Love
Poor
the dude.
Sarge.
Yep. He's well now, getting better.
Good.
Had fractured femur, did a little bit of surgery, took a little taxiing on the bank, but we're all good. We're back at it, back to the rebuild, and back to having him better and being himself.
Excellent. That we were worried. Me and Kate were pretty worried about your little fella. I know.
The grand consensus of the amount of amazing people that care for him and me as well is awesome.
Yeah,
like,
you're a pretty cool guy.
Seeing things, just how people react and the text messages I get from people I never expected to get for something that seems like it's not a ish you, but it's a ish me. Like it's my problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
And real. Just people reaching out, making sure they're good. And the people, like a friend sent up a GoFundMe, which never expected that, never asked anything in my grown life from anybody.
Of course.
It helped tremendously, you know?
Good.
And it was just
alleviate a little pressure.
Very, very thankful for the people in my life because it definitely took care of that pressure.
Well, good, buddy. So, I'm glad Sarge is doing good, and you're doing okay too.
Yeah, I'm doing good now. We're just on the recovery for him. Last week had puppy PT. Yeah. So last week had a good buddy of mine pass away, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's everybody knows the part of the job when they sign up for it. It doesn't make anything any easier for the friends, family, and like my condolences still go out to the family. All my friends and family at Flint Fire and everybody that knew him, like he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
But just trying to kind of hang with the punches. You know, it's a lot to take in and make sure everybody else is doing good. Make sure I'm checked in for myself and kind of going from there. What about you, man? How you doing?
Good. Had a couple stressful things happen this past week. We're integrating them. We're not letting them contaminate our stuff. So some big news. I'm not going to really bring it up here, but we've had a couple things pop up and we are taking them in stride.
Yeah.
And everybody's okay. Everybody's safe. There's just a lot of conversation and discussion and understanding and acceptance that has to go on.
Yeah.
And we're moving with it. Everybody's doing good. I've been sleeping, trying to hit my self-care checklist, making sure I got that under wraps, and it's working.
Yeah. Good.
So
it's one of those things out of your control. How else are you going to deal with it? Only one way to deal with it.
Yeah. You got to respond appropriately, right? Yeah. Effectively and with swift
action, care. Yeah.
Yeah. All of that
stuff. It seems like it. Yeah. And you guys are doing a good job. And my thoughts go out to you and like making sure that you're good.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you, brother. That's what we're here for. Check in. Don't forget to check in with the people around you guys. We can't remind you enough to lend an ear. Make sure the people in your life, let's start with the people closest to us, even yourself. Check in with yourself, check in with your spouses, check in with your brothers and your sisters, your friends, your coworkers. Just make sure everybody's doing good. And it's kind of what this whole episode's about is like dealing with stress. We all have it. And maybe if we interact with somebody, we can be like, hey, I can help you or be a resource. Don't put fuel on the fire. Maybe we're saying.
I think we're pretty good at, for maybe not us in general, but people in general are real good at saying, hey, listen to me. I have the answers. When in some situations it calls for that, right? Sometimes you go, hey, like I've been there. Let me help you. But I think the first step to helping somebody in different situations is just listening to their issue, understanding what they're going through. And maybe they don't want help, but always being there to help.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Let them educate you a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you don't know what they're going through, how are you going to help them at all?
Yeah.
So if you jump to like all these solutions and suggestions and tips and tricks, maybe they just need you to listen.
Yeah.
So they can say it out loud and maybe something will help them.
Yeah.
But get educated on it. We're going to talk about stress in the fire service, man. It's up there.
It's up there.
I would say we do a pretty dangerous job when it comes to what we do and what we experience and what we see and feel. I know for you, I've felt extreme ranges of stress in my short tenure here in the fire service. And The first time I went to a fire, that was stressful because it was a new environment, new demands. Granted, I had been trained. I had all the basic tools, sound the floor. You got a Halligan and a hose line. You're like, I don't know what tool to pick up. There's a whole bunch of things going on.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, I mean, you say getting trained. So it's like you get trained at the fire academy.
Yeah,
and they
man.
teach you all these different things. Like, hey, hold on to your partner. Keep them like grab his leg.
Ankle.
Yeah.
Do not grab my ankle.
Yeah. Until your first fire, you don't realize nobody wants you touching them. You know, like
Exactly.
we divide and conquer. Never put yourself in a situation that you can't get yourself out of. But know where your guys are. There's better ways to do it than keeping holding hands.
Yeah,
right?
that train don't really work real good in, let's just call it the field.
Yeah,
right? There's the
field.
academy, there's the book, there's the streets, and there's the field.
Yeah, if you're going through a test, hang on to your partner. If you're not going through a test, have a good conversation with your crew. Understand what your crew is doing. Be on the same page.
Give me your ankle.
Yeah,
I can't reach.
Yeah, I can't walk.
Clyde.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly, man. Oh, geez, stress. It looks like a lot of different things. It comes in a lot of different ways. Let's start with a definition. Let's try and see if we can come up with a working for the day for the podcast. What is stress?
Are you asking me just so you can correct me? Because I think that's where we're going.
No, this is not a setup, I promise.
So I'm going to shoot anyways. I already see where this one's going. For me, when I define stress, I'm looking at different fields, right? So we have the acute stress. For those that don't know, acute is like sudden. What pops up right now? It might be when you're driving through traffic, somebody cuts you off. Oh no, like don't want to crash my car. We're going to take care of this. Or an acute situation where you are walking on your first fire and you go, I've been trained for this, but I've never experienced this in first person. This is going to be an acute stress to me. And then there's the a chronic stress. Chronic stress is something like I've had maybe you have credit card debt that's built up and like you've been trying to take care of it, but that once a month when you got to pay on it or money's tight, like you just go back to it and you're like pulling your hair out saying like, man, like how am I going to make ends meet? Maybe it's my relationship has been going downhill for a while. How am I going to make this happen? Or you have a goal that you're trying to obtain that seems like it's not getting any closer. You're not making ground on. And those two, chronic and acute stresses, they affect you in different manners. They physically, emotionally, mentally. And that's kind of my definition on stress. It's wide across the board and
it kind of covers
general.
Yeah. And I think general is a good place to start. And I think an example of acute stress is like just let's just say a guy in the bar grabs you by the neck and chokes you for about 3 seconds. That's acute. If he doesn't let go of your neck for the rest of your life, that's
going to be a chronic problem.
It's going to be a chronic problem. So you'll have to deal with that.
Yeah. Good mental picture. I can't relate. Thank God. Knock on wood. Right.
According to the National Institute of Mental Health, they say that stress is the brain's response to any demand. And I thought that was pretty interesting because that makes sense. Like we have to perceive things through our eyes, through our brain, our giant processor that's in this skull of ours. And it talks about demand. And we talk about demand all the time, right? Like the demand of our job, the demand of the roles we play in life, whether you're a father or a husband, you are a business owner, entrepreneur, podcaster, fitness enthusiast.
Yeah. They
all have demands. Right. Like if you don't meet the demands, well, then you're likely not fulfilling the role.
Yeah. Falling short.
Right. If we don't meet up and record, well, then we're not podcasters because, well, we're just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that demand to do it. And like we talked about, the acute guy choking you out real quick, lets you go.
Yeah.
We're going to just say that's short-term stress.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That situation.
Long-term stress is he choked you a little bit and he never lets go of you, or he crushes your windpipe.
Yeah.
Now you got like a long-term potential problem.
Right.
So that's according to National Institute of Mental Health, it's the stress is the brain's response to any demand. And for me, I kind of did some more reading and I see it's either internal or external.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an event in your environment, or it's actually just the environment. When I say environment, I mean the setting, the room, the place, the occupation you're in at that given time in life, in the moment, whatever your environment is, that can produce a stimulus, and that stimulus or demand needs you to do something. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
Okay.
And I like how you said like internal versus external. And I'm going to do a little caveat there and say like,
sure,
even the most external stressors, if undealt with, maybe acute at first, slowly turn into a chronic problem or an acute problem that continues to pop up here and there, they will eventually go internal and stress yourself out. Our body reacts differently to stressors and to different environments, like saying the debt issue, or like maybe you bought a house at a bad time and like now you're upside down. You're wondering if it's worth paying off and you're stressing out about that.
Sure.
You have reactions to your body. You have like cortisol levels. And
your brain's doing all that without you even having to think about it.
Yeah. Like you're having these reactions, and there's health consequences to having chronic stress.
Absolutely.
And I hate to say that acute stress is better, but acute stress you can kind of like get lessons from too. Like if you are able to mitigate it and figure it out, you're like, all right, I know how to deal with this. I've been in this situation before. But a chronic stress that goes without being taken care of can lead to different illnesses. For example, like high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, depression, anxiety, skin problems. And this is all coming off of Harvard's website. I took a couple screenshots there.
Heck yeah,
and they just basically say you need to protect yourself from chronic stress.
Right. We do not want anything to be chronic.
No,
right? We don't want chronic back pain.
Right. Chronic, long time.
So is it, I think it's 30 days, or do they give a day as far as defining acute versus chronic?
I don't think they defined it. If not, I did not take the screenshot of that.
No worries. So acute typically is going to be something that subsides, right? Like, let's just say going to the gym and you've got sore legs. That's going to be a little bit of a stressor. That's probably acute stress, right? It subsides.
Yeah, it's hard walking upstairs for 2 days.
For 2 days. Yeah, you can't sit on the toilet.
Yeah, you're doing the old drop.
Yeah. So if that never went away, or if it lasted longer than it's supposed to, outside of the normal preconceived 2 days, let's just say maybe 5 days. 5 days might be even a little bit long.
Right.
But now you're talking about, you have a chronic issue that's going to cause you some pain, and all those things can add up to be a stressor. Yeah. Right. So a stressor is anything that is the demand from the environment that is calling you to action.
Right.
I think.
As
far as I understand it.
And we always preface this. We are going off of our knowledge. We do our research. Are we perfect? No, but I think that is a perfect definition of it.
So do your own research. And like I said, we're not trying to tell you what to do. We're telling you what we do and how it works for us. But that being said, listen to what we say. Say, man, that's pretty interesting. Go do some further research. Go follow up. Try and understand what stress looks like in your life. Maybe define it for you and the roles you play and the people in your life. And then, start addressing it. And what causes stress is totally another conversation, and we'll get to that. But I did want to say one thing before we go too far, is that stress isn't either good or bad. Stress is just a concept. It's a stimulus from the environment. We'll just go with that example.
I like it.
And that stress, when it shows up, is inherently neutral, and then we process it, and then it becomes good or bad.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Looks sounds good.
Sounds good. Fits. So when we start to interpret the demand from our environment, it plays against our capacity to respond.
Okay.
And if your capacity's been developed in a certain realm, let's just say firefighting, if you have the capacity, experience, sets, reps, understanding, knowledge, techniques, tactical, all of that stuff, your capacity to respond to a fully involved structure fire, given there's probably something crazy happening, but let's just say normal issues, you could probably respond to that pretty well and not get overly stressed.
I think that is probably correct. I think going on to,
let's just say it's under your capacity. Like you've got a 10 out of 10 capacity and it's a 6.
Yeah.
Would that stress you out?
No, it wouldn't. If you're able to open your toolbox up and you say like, all right, house fire, boom, I have experiences from that. Or I have enough experiences to understand like what we're going to be be there.
Sure.
Okay. We have smoke showing. All right. That's another one. We've seen that before.
Yep. Seen this before.
It's going to be 70% involved. Oh, that's going to add to the stress, but we've been there.
So it's a stretch. It's a little bit like, ooh, this is new.
Yeah.
Novel.
Right. Yeah. So we understand what it is, but it's nothing new as of right now. Sure. So showing up on scene, you're going to do the same thing. You got your role. You're putting on your gloves. You're pulling the hose. You know, like
You
you,
got a
have your
routine.
lieutenant doing the scene size up.
Mhm.
You're doing what you need to do. And that situation isn't going to be like a 10-10 stress because you've been there.
Right. Systematically dismantling it into small biteable chunks.
Yeah. Yeah. You've checked those problems off before. Is it going to be something that is like unforeseeable? Sure.
Mhm.
Maybe the chimney's bad. You don't know it until you're on scene and you're like, whoa.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
yeah. But for the new guy, there's a lot of big stressors there.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know what he doesn't know.
Doesn't know what he doesn't know. And that is looking at that big picture, showing up on scene, forgetting to even put his gloves on or how to put a pack on or leaving a tool in the truck because there's so much going on.
Right.
That's a big stress to him.
Sure.
And it might continue to be a big stress if he doesn't figure out what he did. If he did something wrong, knock on wood, we all do.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I know I screwed up my first time.
I'm thankful for all the good guys that told me what I was doing wrong and still continue to do wrong. So I fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But that's going to be a big stress to him for a while, you know? So going back to that 6 out of 10, showing up on scene, you're feeling pretty good, even though it's a stressful situation. What were you going to say after that?
So I just kind of adding to what you're saying is for the lieutenant, the guy's got that wealth of knowledge and all that experience. And this scenario could be any environment, right? It doesn't have to be fire. It could be a sports performance. It could be an emotional challenge. It could be a psychological challenge. There's a lot of ways that this could go. If you've had experience with X, typically you're assuming that experience wasn't overwhelming and overly traumatic to you and you have recovered, you're going to be okay. But that perspective from the new guy, it's a 10 out of 10. It's the same event, but it's being interpreted differently because of time, knowledge, understanding, experience, more times experiencing X event, right?
Yeah.
So that I think is something to always be aware of as somebody, as a firefighter who is experiencing new events, but has people with them, typically as a boss, who are at very, very different levels of experience. And what might be stressful to you might not be stressful to me.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah. And it might be as simple as just talking to, I don't want to say the lay people or civilians, because I don't,
Sure.
I mean, we're normal people. We just have a different job than being a banker, you know, and somewhat
expectations are different.
Stressors are different.
Yes.
And so saying like, you can go and I'm a big CrossFitter. I think most people probably know that by now. We just had the CrossFit Open. Some people look at some of the movements and go, we have to do a snatch, like a heavy snatch, which I look at and I go, let's go, dude. I love snatches.
Sure.
I love heavy. You know, that's my thing. Like I'm ready for it. Whereas some people are like, ooh, I've never even touched that weight before in my life. Like I've been doing good up until now, but this might be the thing that like pushes me down on the leaderboard, or I'm not going to do as well, or I've never seen it.
You're talking self-doubt and negative self-talk there too.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about all that.
Yeah. And that all, I mean, you look at the situation, it's going to be a stressful situation if it means something to them, you know, and that's kind of just throwing it out there so other people can kind of see the same mindset as well.
Totally.
Not saying that a heavy snatch is equal to a house fire by any means, but
it's all
paint the picture.
But I mean, I think you make a really good point, because it's all relative to the environment. Because if I am not trying to put out a house fire, but I have something else that I'm in the environment that I need to focus on that is causing me a distraction or a stress, then that's the fire I need to put out. I might not be at work, but if I'm trying to get into the CrossFit competition and I have to do a challenge that is, and I know it is beyond my current capacity, other than I'm going to have to like send it, like go for it. Like this is going to be a real challenge.
Risky.
That's no less, or I just don't want that to sound like we're devaluing that being the stress, because the heaviest stress is the one that's going to float to the surface no matter what. So now we could talk about contamination of environments, right? So now let's just say you didn't go to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Right?
Right here.
So you didn't make the quarterfinals, but let's just say you go to work the next day and you're all pissed off and you're flustered.
Yeah.
So now you catch a job and something goes a little wrong there. Now those two stress events, maybe they weren't uber stressful to begin with, but they've accumulated and they've multiplied.
Yeah.
Now you've got two things, and now you're just in a real bad mood.
You just chucked a log onto the fire.
Yeah. So it's all interconnected too. So stress from any environment that we have, from any of the roles that we fulfill in our life, can start to contaminate and cross over into others.
Yeah.
And likely it adds up, and it just adds up in us. Right? We are stress magnets unless we know how to filter that in before it comes in, and how we respond, how we offload that stress is, again, up to us.
Yeah. And you put a very good point out there saying like stressors are individualized.
And they're everywhere.
Everywhere. And
Everywhere.
we deal with them all day long. Most of the time, people have seen different situations. So if it comes to driving, or if it comes to maybe you get stressed out when you're going to meal prep and you have everything lined up what you need, and you go to the grocery store and they don't have something.
Sure.
Like, come on, like this is the one thing I needed. Like,
Right.
Like this, I would have been done. Like I already put in all this effort, and like maybe that's like one thing that just pushes you over the edge.
Right.
So we're trying to talk about how you evaluate your stresses and how you can kind of mitigate these problems. Like, is there problem solving? Yeah, we've gone through problem solving, but we're going to talk about the importance of dealing with these stresses and trying to not blow them off, but how do we cool them down?
Yeah.
So we don't have this chronic stress. You don't have these things building up.
Absolutely. How do you offload? Like, how do you offload that? So stress events can be triggered by things like a divorce, getting sick, crashing your car.
Yeah.
Right. And again, we say stress, but stress isn't always good, and it isn't always bad.
Right.
Right. So a stressful event could be training for the CrossFit Games.
Right.
Or waiting to hear the results of whether you made it to the final game or not.
Right.
That's stressful, but then it alleviates into, oh, I made it. Or it goes into, you didn't make it.
Yeah.
And how you deal with that outcome is really going to determine whether that becomes a stressful thing, if you get back on the horse, you start training again, or if it makes you go downhill and you start drinking booze and hitting up the hookers.
I quit, Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. How you deal with it.
And so in the fire service, we want to pay attention to the demands of our job, right? Our demands are, there's a list, and I literally have a list, but the first four that I have, and there's no particular order, is we suffer, or we have a demand of long hours, 24 hours on shift. We are not in control by any means of any of those hours.
No.
We can work with what we get, but they're not ours.
Yeah.
They're the public's. They're the people that call us to service.
Yeah.
Some days you might get 2 calls. Some days you might get 25 calls.
Yeah.
That's a lot of calls. That's a stressor, right? That is a stressor. Shift work, just the whole being up after we're supposed to be in bed thing.
Yeah.
That causes stress. That can be a stressor. That can add to a stressor. But what we're going to call it is the fire service demand. It's just the demand of our job. It's what it demands from us whenever it wants to. Disrupted sleep patterns is another big demand of our job.
Huge.
And then the last one, not the last one, but the fourth one, sporadic high intensity events. Literally everything we take. Granted, it could be a dress rehearsal. It could be a false alarm. It could be a culinary catastrophe.
Yeah.
Or it could be the one. Right?
It could be something we just dealt with. We get called for abdominal pain.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys is like not really a big deal. Doesn't sound that urgent. We go and just take 2 people on it.
Mm-hmm.
Ends up being a full blown STEMI.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and now you got 2 guys when you're hoping to have 4 just to help out, get some IVs, and take care of this patient in the best possible way.
Right. Quickly.
Luckily, had 2 very good medics on scene.
Mm-hmm.
Took care of it well. They got the help he needed. Everything was A-okay. Like, it worked out.
Perfect.
But stressful situation.
Sure.
Yeah. Went from
the pressure was up for
like
sure.
a 2 to a 7 pretty quick.
Sure. And their ability, so perfect example, their ability to handle that demand in that scenario had a lot to do with their training, their experience, their understanding, their technical and tactical savvy, right? Their ability to respond to that demand.
Yeah.
Determined whether that was a stressful event.
Yeah.
So if those 2 medics were new or newer, and maybe they hadn't run a code, 2 people, they've always had the engine there to help.
Yeah,
right?
some experience.
Yeah, so let's just take out manpower and experience, and now you've got 2 fairly green medics running a code, or not a code, but a STEMI.
Yeah,
right.
There's priority 1 call.
Yeah, you got all that stuff. That could turn to be a stressful event if it overwhelmed those individuals resources and capabilities.
Yeah.
That could turn into what we would call a possibly traumatic event.
Yeah. Or second guessing yourself, making sure you're doing everything the right way.
Sure.
You know,
I mean, there's hundreds of ways that could be really, really challenging to go through.
Yeah. So you mentioned good stress, right? We've kind of gone down a rabbit hole of a lot of bad stress, and more or less just to show everybody that like it's out there. You don't have to be naive and say like, oh, my life's good. Like whenever somebody asks me like, how's your day going? I'm living the dream, you know?
Right.
Like we got things going on. Everybody's got things going on, and unfortunately, like you can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You don't know what their at-home life stressors are, but like you can kind of understand their like work life stressors, I guess.
You can relate.
Right? And so there's stress out there, bad stress everywhere. So now let's talk about good stress. Dude, enlighten me on that, because I don't know.
So there's
not sold.
Stress doesn't have to always be a negative thing. And like I said in the beginning, the term stress and the concept doesn't have to be colored in a black or white fashion. Okay. We'll just call it's a term, it's a concept used to describe this environment that poses a demand on an individual, and then that individual has to respond somehow, some fashion, and whether that person is able to respond effectively or ineffectively, or if they were able to cope properly or they can't cope, that's going to turn into what we would say is a bad stress. But good stress exists too. Like when we go to the gym, when we go for a run, we're doing things to our body that are actually putting a stress on the body. It's breaking down muscles. It's strengthening and challenging tendons and ligaments. It's making our heart pump more, right? So that stress and then the associated recovery is going to allow our heart to be a little bit more robust, our ability to run longer, our ability to pick up something heavier. So we're challenging or putting our muscles, for instance, under resistance, pushing against that resistance, and then all of the damage that happens there, the stress of doing that.
Yeah, physical stress
breaks down the muscle. A lot of things happen. Recovery happens, and then that muscle adapts, right?
Yeah.
So that's good stress.
You're selling me on the idea. And now I see it that you also have the good mental stress. So like the bad stress is like leads to depression, anxiety. But if you put it in terms of you're challenging yourself. So maybe you're doing a Tough Mudder, maybe you're going for a long run. Maybe you're not a runner or you don't like to work out, but you're starting to do that. Well, now you are challenging your mind and you're putting stress in your mind. Your mind says, dude, like, don't put those shoes on. It's 8 a.m. or maybe it's like 2 p.m. We could just chill out. Like,
yeah, man,
you think you're a runner, like you want to go and get motivated. It's not the time, you know? Well, you go, F that. I'm going to go put my shoes on, challenge myself. And now you're being mentally resilient because you're challenging yourself. You're causing stress on purpose, controlled stress.
Yeah, you're exposing yourself willfully to adversity.
Yeah.
Right. But that has a lot to do with how you interpret things. Right. If running 5 miles is like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Your mindset is fixed on negativity or it's not going to go well. Chances are that's going to be a really long, miserable run for you.
Yeah.
Unless you can find a way to adapt your behavior in the middle of that and say, you're right. I like this. Oh, this feels good. I'm doing good. I'm on a PR. Great. Right. So how we experience that has a lot to do with whether it becomes a stressor or not.
Yeah.
With bad stress, but it could go good too.
Right? Yeah, get good, get a little bit more mental toughness. And when you have that mental toughness that you worked up yourself, almost like in a controlled environment,
you're tempered.
And you're tempered to saying, hey man, I made it through a house fire, something crazy. Maybe it didn't go as planned, but things worked out.
Sure.
That stress went from a 7 down to a 3. Now that you're walking out and you're like looking at your guys like, we did it. You know what I mean? And later that day, when you have an uncontrolled stress that you didn't prepare for, didn't know what was going to go on, maybe you get in a car accident and you look at yourself and you go,
I'm okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
The other person's okay. Like this is like my grandpa always says, if you can write a check for it, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
You know, and you look at it, kind of brush it off and say, all right, we're good. Like you're building that mental resilience. You're building your ability to deal with stress.
So you're improving your capacity.
Yeah.
And it does take reps. It does take stressful environments, stressful events to build a capacity of, and we use the word tempered. And when I think blacksmiths, when they temper steel, they dip hot steel in cold water over and over and over again. And that event, putting something hot in something cold, putting water on fire, that causes a reaction of stress, and it changes the molecules.
Yeah, and it hardens them.
It hardens it, right? So when we expose ourselves to good stressors, we increase our capacity. But some stressors reduce our capacity because they take from us. They take the capacity we have and they don't give it back.
Right.
And that's when we start to see long-term chronic things where we are continually exposed to the demands of the fire service that we all know very, very well what they are. And I would love to add a couple more to it.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Strong emotional involvement. So there's an event that you see a child. You see, for me, I have a hard time seeing or not being able to save pets because they don't have any choice in the matter.
Right.
Granted, either do kids. Life and death decisions, making decisions that are going to either get someone killed or potentially save their life. There's a lot of weight to that. Granted experience, all those external things that you can do to prepare for that and have the capacity for that will help reduce that stress. But there's a good chance you're going to run into something that you've never experienced before, and it's just going to wipe out your capacity.
Yeah.
Kind of like what happened to me. I had an event happen. It was novel. Didn't expect it. Came out of left field. And like, what? Now I have this new reality that I have to really, really quickly adapt to. And there's a bunch of things happening.
Yeah. And
right?
You can't avoid it.
No,
you have to take it face on.
You have to, because if you start avoiding things that are on fire, they just get worse and they burn other things down.
Yeah.
Right. If you have, like we talk about the 8 elements of wellness, right? If you've got an occupational fire, something about your job is just grinding your gears and you are super unhappy and it's making you just the angriest old cuss you could ever be. And then you experience a stressor over here in your physical where you break your leg and all of a sudden you get behind on a bill and then you're sad. Like we're talking about like a really big problem here.
Yeah. You're watching the forest and the trees are just falling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just everything's catching on fire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you avoided handling one small little ember.
Yeah.
As it could have just been occupational stuff.
Right. And we see in the fire service alone, we see a lot of like relationship issues due to that. Something will happen at work and maybe the person you chose to spend your life with or the person you're dating or what have you, you look at them for happiness. You want them to always be there for you. And not everybody's perfect. They're not going to be there every single day. I mean, maybe they are amazing, but most likely people are going to have off days. And maybe you go home and you really need this person and they're emotionally unavailable to you because of something else that happened in their life.
Right. They have their own stressors in their own roles. My wife goes to work.
Yeah.
She could be really suffering from a work thing.
Right.
Right.
Or she's looking to you to be there. And now you take your occupational, you bring it home. You look to try to feel better. You're like, oh, we've been here. This is a routine. She'll make me feel better. She's not there. You start an argument with her.
Right.
And things just go downhill.
Sure.
And we see it happen all the time. And it's one of those things like use your brothers and sisters.
Yep.
Like use the people at work. There's a million different ways to try to deal with stress and talking to people and having others that can talk you through it or at least learn from. And also just, try to deal with it your own. And if you can't, always ask for help.
Yeah, for sure. Always.
And it's we hate seeing bad things happen to really good people. And stress is abundant and it happens to people all the time.
Yeah. So stress is definitely abundant and it accumulates, right? So let's just say you have this backpack full of books, right? And you take those books out and as your day goes on, you accumulate another stressor. So you put one of those books back in. Yeah. And before you know it, your bag is bursting at the seams if you're not really sure how to offload the books.
Right.
Right. And how do you offload the books? Well, you take them out of the bag. And each little self-care practice that we develop, meditation, going for walks, physical exercise, journaling, all these self-care suggestions, those are ways to take the books out of the bag and reduce the amount of weight or baggage that you have. And I know it sounds silly, but this stuff is heavy, guys. And the more stress that we hold on to and accumulate and try to absorb and pretend isn't there, that we don't properly offload, tends to come out at the wrong time. It comes out in short temper, comes out in digestion problems, diarrhea, heartburn.
Yeah.
Like it starts to manifest physically within our bodies. And that's never a good sign when you're getting headaches, your mood, you're angry.
Yeah.
All because
hairline trigger.
You're just not offloading the stuff that we should. And I think the demands of this job are so great that we as firemen, we as fire service members, from probationary to battalion chief, and preferably administration to chiefs, assistant chiefs, all that stuff, we all need to understand that we have to, help each other offload the stress because it's abundant, like you've made very clear. And the demands of this job are relentless. They do not stop no matter what. You could have 3 bad days in a row, and guess what? It's going to turn it up on you because that's just what happens.
Yeah.
So offloading this stuff and getting habits that offset the stress that we accumulate is really, really important. But I think one of the most important jobs is to understand how demanding this job can be. And it might go in waves. And you might be a seasoned veteran. But even the seasoned vets meet that thing that exceeded their capacity to fulfill the role. And we don't want to see that because it looks bad sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You can die. You can get hurt. You can get someone else hurt. And I just can't underestimate. No, that's not even the right way. I want to emphasize how important it is to understand the demands of this job and the tools we have at our exposure right now or disposal to meet those demands: fitness, exercise, diet, sleep, and mental preparation and performance.
Yeah.
Training those 4 elements, I think, is probably one of our best routes to help reduce stress.
And I know we sound like a broken record when we say this stuff.
I know.
But the proof is in the pudding. I mean, you can do all the research you want. I know me and Chris have done plenty on our own. I think a lot of people that are following along with this podcast, we can't thank you enough for what you guys do and just paying attention to us. But I'd like to believe that a lot of you guys have either improved or even taken things in your own matters of doing your own research and seeing what works for you. Or maybe you're trying to get more sleep, quality sleep when you're at home. Maybe you're trying to go to the gym a little bit more and try to lose a little weight, eat a little bit better, and seeing how it affects your life, that it does bring happiness, and I hate to say it's not like a happiness pill end all be all, but it helps a lot.
And it releases drugs in your brain that make you happy.
Yeah. I mean, you get enough stress in your body, you have sexual dysfunctions.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that come along with the stress that we hold on to.
Yeah. And that's speaking generally, that's something that everyone's kind of about. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's it takes 2 to tango. And if you can't do something or you can't be there for someone else, your significant other, then it's going to cause stress in their life. And it goes across the board. Not taking care of your stressors are just unhealthy in general. And the stress is everywhere. And there's keys. I mean, if you look back at our old videos, we talk about fitness, we talk about sleep, we talk about how you can create your own environment that makes you happy. We talk about meditation. We talk about saunas, cold plunges. I mean, cold plunge, you hop in there, they say 3 minutes in the cold plunge, you will have a dopamine rush that will get you through the rest of the day. It's like a 200 times dopamine dump in your body.
That's a lot.
And don't maybe look that one up, but it's supposed to be 3 minutes a day. It's supposed to be enough like happiness drugs your body's releasing for the rest of the day. 3 minutes.
And that's stress. That's whether we want to call it good stress, bad stress, eustress, pressure, stress. That is getting in that thing is stressful.
Yep.
But it doesn't always have to be a bad stress. It doesn't have to be a bad outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good example of something that is a good stress, but it's still stress.
So that leads me to say, by doing that, you're building your capacity. And I think as firemen, this is a very bold statement, but we should all strive to build our capacity to be more than we need, so that when the demands that we have to respond to do not overwhelm our capacity and ability to respond appropriately again.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's a very good one-liner.
That's all I got. I'm out. I just had a brain dump, and
That was
I
a good
blacked
one.
out.
Yeah, that's all right, man.
But
yeah.
really, there's stress can show up in all sorts of ways. I got it right down here: physical, mental, emotional, social, existential, and environmental.
Yeah.
Right. Those are some pretty good ways that stress can start to show up, or the types of stressors that they can be. But real quick, let's talk about what are some signs of stress.
Ooh, so are you looking for yourself or observing in others?
Oh, just so how does stress show up for you, Ben?
So again, I try to not consider myself a real stressful person. I try to mitigate situations before they get too out of hand.
Sure.
But my situational awareness is I physically, if I'm real stressed, I can feel like a little bit of sweat on my upper lip. And that's why I know
maybe this is an acute stress.
Yep. And so I know like, all right, how are we going to deal with this? You know, for me, I don't feel very like I'm an anxious person by any means.
Sure.
But I can kind of feel like the edgy anxiety about a situation.
Would you say is that energy, or are you calling it anxiety because you're nervous about what's going to happen?
I'm going to say I don't really have a good understanding of anxiety for myself.
Sure.
Because I don't say I'm a chronic anxiety ridden person. But when I have a situation that seems out of my hands or foreign to something I've dealt with before,
sure,
I would say I feel like I have some sort of anxiety. It's almost like an energy, emotion in my body, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. Okay.
Sure.
So sweat on the lip, uncomfortable feeling. Maybe mind's racing at about 100 miles an hour, trying to figure out like pulling things out of boxes. Have we dealt with this before? Have we seen it? What does this correlate to? And then if it's going on where it's not a sudden problem, it's been like a chronic issue, maybe I take it home and I have a real hairline trigger.
Sure.
I'm known for that. I've done so much work trying to work on it.
Nice.
And not really put my stressors out on other people and just deal with them myself. I will eat bad food just to feel happy.
Yeah.
Maybe
I did that recently.
I'll stay up late and not follow. I'll kind of, all these good habits I have, I'll kick to the wayside for a short period of time until I look in the mirror and go like, this isn't you.
Right.
You know, and it does happen.
Yeah, it does.
Probably several times a year it happens, you know, and like it might only last 3 days. It might last 2 weeks. And I just go, man, you've been out partying the last 2 weekends. Like,
you finally catch up and realize, like, what am I doing?
What are you doing to yourself? And it all leads down to, well, I'm unhappy in this like situation, and this is just keeping my mind off of it.
Yeah, you're distracting yourself.
Yeah. So let's take care of this and just see if I actually like going out and hanging out with friends every weekend, or partying or getting like drinking, whatever. Yeah. And then you go, oh, no, like I like feeling good. Yeah. You know, like to hang out with friends, love it. I'm a very social person, but getting drunk every weekend, that's not really my thing.
So let's just use that as an example.
Okay.
Right. And I know that was all hypothetical. So you have stressor A show up, or X or whatever. And in the short term, the adaptive decision was to distract. And likely that solved the problem because you were distracted. You forgot about it.
In the mind, it solved the problem. Right. Problem's still there.
But the problem's still there. And it's technically not nourishing your body, going out and drinking, staying up late, alcohol, sleep deprivation on top of our job, which is already, again, we don't have to talk about the demands of this job. But when you start adding in those kind of demands, those social stressors, which they're fun and they serve a purpose while mitigated and properly balanced.
Exactly.
Right? There's a healthy balance there. That is, now you're 2 weeks in and you're like, man, what am I doing? So you've realized that your quick, acute adaptation to that stressor is over. Now it's time to start thinking again about long-term goals, health, wellness, training, not being drunk, not getting hungover, all those things. So sometimes the behaviors that we do, let me rephrase that. All the times the behaviors we have are trying to solve a problem. And then if you have a short-term reaction that is maladaptive, it was likely adaptive and it worked for the small term, but we have to switch it for long term.
Yeah.
But it was still the right choice, perhaps. Maybe it exceeded your coping. Maybe it exceeded your decision-making. It pushed you outside of your capacity. So you started to choose behaviors that were quicker fixes and they typically involve substances, other things like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And like, true story, when I was younger, probably maybe 21, maybe just right around 21. I remember I was working full time in Flint, and like our paychecks weren't anything to really write home about.
Sure.
I had credit card, and I remember I was always like, first I got it, was really good, like just paying it off, like using it for gas or whatever. Then I go make one big purchase, and you're like, all right, well, like I'll just pay a chunk of it, Well, the more you ignore it, like the bigger it got.
Avoidance.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And until like I focused on like, hey, this is an issue, man. Like you're still living this like lavish lifestyle, like you're making whatever money, and but you are, just because you have like this credit, it's not money in the bank.
Right. No.
And it took me
debt
months to realize that you need to get this taken care of. And the deeper the hole they put you in, I think I was at like $5,000 when I was like 21. I was like, dude, how am I going to mitigate this? I went on a straight ramen diet and like not doing anything after trying to like have fun and go out and do all these trips with my friends and stuff.
Sure.
And I was like, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And I was ignoring the problem for months on end. And luckily, it was a lesson that I learned very early on. It was a card where like $5,000 was the limit, which now I look at isn't like a crazy limit.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Not very much.
Thank God they knew what they were doing when they decided to give me that money.
Exactly.
But to me, that was the biggest stressor in my life because I had no other ways besides working another job to earn more money.
Right.
And when I had that problem at hand, I go, I'll deal with that later. Like money will come. It'll be okay, Yeah. And it just kept on compiling over and over. And then before I looked at it, I go, dude, I can't spend this card anymore. Like it's done. It's empty,
It's full.
It's full.
So that literally matches the whole idea of making sure we have the capacity to handle the debts that we incur from the demands that we are taking on in the fire service.
Yeah.
That is a really good example of how that actually looks.
Yeah.
Because once the card's full, guess what? It's full. You can't use it anymore.
That's a wrap.
If that was a person, it would get injured if you tried to take on more.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to start to suffer. You're going to have diarrhea. You're going to have anxious. You're going to get sick all the time. You're just going to be like malaise. You're probably not going to sleep good. You won't be working out. You'll probably be drinking more.
Right. And it was all, it wasn't that I was living living above my lifestyle.
Sure.
Because I had very few bills and I had the capability to pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I decided not to until it was like maxed out at $5,000.
Right.
But I remember that being like the biggest issue. Thank God it happened at that point in my life where I'm able to correct it.
Mm-hmm.
But the stress behind it for months on end when I was like chucking full paychecks at it and like not being able to hang out with friends and like changing my lifestyle up was huge.
Sure.
It felt at that time like the biggest worry to me.
Right. And it likely was. It was causing you stress.
Yeah. And it was chronic stress. It was continually for months on end until it was finally taken care of.
Right. And it only became chronic because you ignored it.
And if anything, I worsened it. Like I would continue to use it. Like I'll be fine.
Right.
I'll feel like $200 at it. Like,
sure.
All right, but I'm gonna spend $800 this month. You know what I mean? Like it didn't make sense.
I know what you mean.
So and that's like a real life thing, and it happened to me. And like I have the conversation with my little cousins about it when they're growing up, and I'm like, hey, you're gonna get this sweet thing called a credit card one day.
Mm-hmm.
Like use it for gas, groceries, anything that you're gonna cover anyways.
Right.
But besides that, it's a tricky situation.
So there are so many things that finances, occupational wellness, emotional wellness, intellectual wellness that we don't even discuss. That if I knew the basics of before I had a credit card, before I was involved in relationships, before I started being responsible for bigger and worse or better things, like my life would have been a lot different.
It would mitigate a lot of issues.
Yeah, it would prevent a lot of things. We weren't trained, and I think there's a cultural thing, and we don't get trained up enough on the things that actually affect us.
Right.
Like we learned some stuff in school, but nobody told me to pay attention to financial wellness. And maybe there was a class or like budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Not for us.
Not for us.
Yeah. I graduated in 2014. There's nothing in the curriculum for that.
Yeah. And dude, prolonged stress, like those events, they lead to things that aren't really good. And again, in the fire service, we have so many demands that are basically asking us to be stressed about.
Yeah.
And they cause physical challenges to us. We run into anxiety disorders, we run into depression, and we run into a thing called burnout. And we won't get too deep into that, but that's when you just start to not even follow the rules. Right. You're not following policy, you're being unsafe, you're making choices that typically you wouldn't make, but it has a lot to do with the things that are going on inside and in the background that just need to be addressed.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild stuff, man. So what are our options? How do we treat this type of thing? We can change the situation, right?
Right.
If you're in a bad relationship, hopefully you can change it.
Yeah.
If you got a bad relationship with finances, stop spending, start saving, pay off your debts.
Right.
I'm doing that. I totally understand.
Yeah.
What about developing better coping skills?
So that was a big turning point for me was when I got to a point where I'm like, hey, like this card doesn't work anymore. I'm like, okay, well, we need to get this taken care of. Granted, if anything, I got a pretty awesome credit score, I think, from it.
Sure.
Because like I never had to miss payments.
Right.
But it was just my lifestyle drastically changed. And at that point, it was the best time for that to happen if I was going to get that lesson in life.
Sure.
Because I couldn't imagine having a wife and kids and maybe say like whether it's 5,000 or 50,000, insurmountable amount of debt. And you say, hey, we're on a brutal budget. Like we're eating ramen, like kids not playing sports this year because like we need to save money. Like you're not going to go get your nails done. It's affecting more than just you.
Right.
Me,
it's not just you.
It just affected me and it showed like a lifestyle change. Like I can handle this. I'm going to change some things.
Sure.
And I'm going to cope with it by saying like, here's my problem. Like I put myself in this situation. I'm going to take care of it. All right. Went down and my 21, 22-year-old self, like wrote down a budget, like figured everything out. All right. How much are we going to save? How much are we going to put at it? What's the interest? And I end up learning a lot about credit and finances on my own.
Sure.
Because I was almost embarrassed to go to anybody.
Right. Of course.
And
stigma.
Yeah. And so I took care of that situation by understanding the problem, having a game plan, realizing that what I was doing was actually just hurting it versus helping it.
Sure.
And I can go in the same fashion, I can help it instead of hurt. So I can go and have a budget. I can not go and have steaks or go drinking or buy beer or have bourbon at the house, whatever.
Right.
What 21, 22-year-olds do. And I'm just going to have like water, ramen, like cheap meals, maybe chicken, rice.
Yeah, you sacrificed.
Yeah, I'm not buying new shoes and I'm putting the majority of my money to take care of this problem. And unfortunately, like you have a finite amount that you get in your check.
Right.
So you have to schedule it out, say how much you're going to take, how long it's going to take for you to pay it off. And I just took the problem head on.
So by facing that problem and taking effective action into it, how did that make your stress change? Like, what did that do to the feeling you had? Let's just say after you just when you started making progress.
The first portion of it felt like I almost threefold the stress. But about a month in, when I started seeing like it's irrefutable progress towards it, I felt pretty good.
Nice.
Like I'm capable of doing this. And like, hey, like I put myself in this situation, I'm pulling myself out of this situation because of the decision that I made and are making.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it was all said and done, I felt like I could conquer the world.
Sure.
And like I feel like I had my life back, you know?
Yeah, man.
And not only that, but I also felt like I've learned so much from that one little thing. And I really did reflect early on about how lucky I was that it happened at that point in life.
That is very, very profound of you to notice that it was good that it happened when it did.
Yeah. Because I realized it only affected me and like maybe some of my friends, like you can go out and hang out with them, whatever.
Sure.
But like I just clamped down and did what I needed to do.
Right.
Really.
Nice. And that leads me to remind us all, and I have to remember it too, and it's good for everybody. But whenever we have a fire like that, right? Like we have a fire in any element of our life or our roles, the most productive thing we can do is take effective action into it. It'll reduce stress, it'll reduce anxiety, and it'll actually give you a direction so you can start to focus on fixing that issue.
Yeah.
And once we put that fire out, everything gets better. And maybe we still have a couple other fires to put out. Maybe we have a spiritual crisis that we have to deal with, whatever it is. But now we have one less fire to get everything else all engulfed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was lucky I had one thing besides like work that I'm going to work, doing my thing, that I feel like it was fun for me. So it didn't bother me.
Nice.
But I had, that was the biggest stressor at that time in my life. And I gave probably 80% attention to it.
Nice.
And once that was mitigated, like, yeah, you have these things here and there, but I looked at it like I got that done. I was able to overcome this giant thing that worried me for so long. I got a couple other things I can iron out and I'll be good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You probably could pay that off now with your current paychecks.
Different story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all about how you perceived it. And it had a lot to do with your ability to manage and handle that in that environment and your ability to respond.
Yeah. I mean, I think my first paycheck from Flint was like under $700.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was like,
that's low.
I was young and I was balling out of control, man. I thought I was good. They told us what the top out pay was. I'm like, man, I'm gonna make like $55,000.
Oh man,
say less. That sounds awesome. Like,
say less.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's funny looking back at now,
and that's the way we should do it: is reflect on it and have a little laugh about it.
Yeah,
and then here we are. So a couple of stress management techniques we should talk about. I think there's 4 that the fire service in general needs to pay attention to, and it's going to be mental preparation or meditation. Mental performance, I think they kind of all go together. There's exercise, there's diet, and there's sleep. Mm-hmm. Those are the 4 main. If I was to drop any one, I would say the meditation mental aspect can go to the bottom. And then exercise, diet, and sleep should be the 3 tier 1 priorities for all firefighters in the service. And I think those are the 3 most important things we can focus on.
Yeah, if you hit those 3 consistently, you're batting 300. You're doing great.
You're doing great,
right? And for the people that want to go and touch in the whole meditation, you're being superb now. Like most people,
they're polishing it up.
Yeah, they don't get taught how to meditate. Like their family doesn't meditate. They never heard of it. Maybe they watch a couple videos. But if you're to the point now where you're feeling so good with your exercise, sleep, and
your nutrition,
your diet, then meditation. You're at a 10 out of 10. Now you're going to try to push for like a 12 out of 10.
Yeah.
And you're just doing more.
Yeah. When you sit down and you put in intentional time to breathe and think or, allow things to happen when you're meditating, you're creating a capacity. You're creating room for more capacity. You're actually elongating whatever capacity you currently have for more. You're just expanding. And again, as it comes with the fire service and the demands of this career, 25 years of anything is a lot.
Right.
25 years of all the things that we have to tend to is way more than most humans are capable of. Granted, there's a handful of tier 1 Navy SEALs. They go do all that crap and they do it for a long time.
Yeah.
But they use the same things.
Yeah.
They focus on sleep. They focus on exercise. They have their diets. They're fit. Their mental game is beyond what we could even express here.
Right.
I think they spend tons of time in the meditation, in the imagination, in the visualization of their job.
Yeah.
So these skills are something we don't talk about in the fire service, but they're currently being used at other high performance levels all across the world.
Absolutely.
And I think as this podcast goes, we want to bring those to our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We want to use them. I know I'm trying to integrate them. I know you do.
Yeah.
And if you want to do anything at a level of high performance where you show up, you do your best, you give your best, and you actually make things better for people around you, it's going to take a lot of work.
A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort.
Yep.
And I think to a lot of our listeners, maybe just picking up one of those things and trying to conquer it is hard enough than doing all 4.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get good at one, it's going to end up being somewhat second nature. And it's you know how you feel when you're hitting your 8 hours sleep or your 7 hours of sleep. I know most people don't get 8 hours. You're supposed to, but when you're getting quality sleep, you're going to start feeling better. And now that you got that kind of in the bucket, you're like, all right, I'm going to start exercising more often. Like I'm going to get this taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take one of those at a time, you are going to see such great results in your life, man.
Absolutely.
Like, I can't stress this enough to people. Like the guys I work with, I'm lucky. Like we have really good, well-rounded guys.
Yeah.
And we also have a lot of guys that are willing to ask for help.
Sure.
And when you see that, you go, sit down. I'll spend whatever time I need with you. Like, let's figure this out. If you want to get better, let's get better. Like, I'm not the best, but I know what I do and I will give you all my knowledge. And then hopefully you can take that and level it up and you can bring it back to me or you can pass it down to somebody else. And you take care of these small things and your life will change and it's going to make you feel better. You're going to be healthier. And hopefully when you go and get that blood test back, you look at your numbers, you go, hot damn, I'm doing good.
Yeah,
you know?
Man.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it comes down to is is getting ourselves prepared to handle all of this stress for 25 years, helping each other, looking out for each other, sharing the knowledge, transferring the knowledge that we have or somebody else might have, and getting it in to the fire service.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff outside of our little bubble that is going on that is making health and wellness the best thing to focus on for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we're no different. We're humans. We're all humans, right? We're humans by chance. We're firefighters by choice.
Yeah.
And I think that is just really what we have to focus on is what humans need. And apparently we need to offload stress. We need to build our capacity, and we have to assess the demands of our job. So to make sure we meet or exceed those regularly and all the way up until the last day.
Yeah.
I think if you have to be a firefighter in any capacity and you might have to deploy hose, if it's your last day, I hope that you are prepared.
Right.
Because the task is so much and the demand is always high.
Yeah.
That hopefully you can do it.
The task is easy, but and you assuming people know how to do it, but not being able to do it, there's consequences to that. You're delaying helping out others. You're delaying what you sworn to do, like.
Yeah. And whether you know you can do it or not, let's just say you're not sure. Guess what that's called?
Stress.
It's called stress. And if you're not sure that you can perform the job, one real quick way to attack that is to take action today.
Yeah.
Find out where you're weak, address your weaknesses, come up with an action plan, and make moves. I'm Chris.
I'm Ben.
And together we are Priority Traffic Podcast. Please like, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Check us out on all of your social network pages. Thank you.
Thank you.